The ship Harmony's light floated silently in the black emptiness of space. Its emergency beacon flashed weakly, sending out pulses of light into the darkness. Inside the damaged ship, Ambassador Trill worked quickly despite her injuries. Blood the color of the sky dripped from cuts on her thin arms as she recorded what might be her last message. Her people, the Lumari, came from a peaceful world with no dangerous animals and gentle weather. They were not built for violence or pain. "This is Ambassador Trill of the Galactic Council." She spoke into the recorder. Her voice shook but remained clear. "The Krull Dominion has broken the peace treaty. They have attacked several peaceful worlds without warning." She paused to press a cloth against her wound. The Harmony's light had been traveling back from failed peace talks when the Krull ships appeared from nowhere. Most of her crew died in the first attack. Those who survived the initial blast didn't last long in the vacuum of space after the hull broke. Trill looked at her computer screen. The Galactic Council's rules were very clear. All emergency calls must go to the Council's peacekeeping forces first. But she knew the truth. By the time the Council finished talking about what to do, more worlds would burn. Her hand hovered over a restricted communication channel. Using it would break the most important rule of the Council. "They left us no choice," she whispered. With a decisive tap, she activated the quantum transmitter. Not aimed toward the Council headquarters, but toward the forbidden sector, toward Earth. The Council had classified Earth as a death world decades ago. Its high gravity, extreme weather, and dangerous wildlife had created humans. Beings that could survive conditions that would kill most galactic citizens. Humans were stronger, faster, and had a history of war that horrified the peaceful Council. The Lumari had been among the few who argued against complete isolation of Earth. Trill had personally visited the planet as part of a research team. She had seen the humans' capacity for both violence and compassion. She typed in the classified codes that would bypass the quarantine barriers around Earth's solar system. To the leaders of Earth, she recorded, fighting to stay conscious as more blood pooled beneath her chair. "This is Ambassador Trill of the Lumari people. 30 years ago, my kind spoke against your isolation. Now, I break that isolation to beg for your help." She attached data files containing the coordinates of all worlds currently under Krull attack, along with everything the Council knew about Krull ships and weapons. "The Council fears what you might become if allowed to join galactic society. I fear what will happen to that society without your strength. Please help us. The Krull show no mercy." With the last of her strength, Trill pressed the transmit button. The quantum signal would reach Earth almost instantly, traveling through folds in space that normal communications couldn't access. "May the stars forgive us for what we've unleashed," she murmured, slumping in her chair. Hours later, the Harmony's light shuddered as Krull boarding ships attached to its damaged hull. Armored soldiers moved through the silent corridors, their weapons ready. They found Trill's body in the command center, surrounded by the evidence of her final act. One soldier checked the communication logs. "Commander, a transmission was sent," he reported, "to the quarantine system." On his ship, the Krull commander received this news with anger. "Find out what she sent them. Now." But it was already too late. The message had reached its destination, and on Earth, alarms were already sounding in deep underground bases and hidden facilities beneath the oceans. The Deathworlders were waking up. Fleet Admiral Jack Morgan stood tall before the United Earth Defense Council. His uniform was crisp and dark, decorated with medals from wars fought only on Earth. The room was deep underground, protected by layers of rock and security systems. Above the large round table in the center, the blue-skinned alien woman's final message played. Ambassador Trill's hologram flickered as she begged for Earth's help. When the message ended, silence filled the room. Morgan looked at each council member's face before speaking. 30 years, he said, his voice deep and steady. 30 years since the Galactic Council labeled Earth a prohibited death world and placed us under quarantine. 30 years we've spent building our fleet in secret, preparing for the day they might need us, or fear us enough to try eliminating us. No one spoke. They all remembered the day alien ships arrived and told humanity they were too dangerous to join galactic society. Earth's high gravity, extreme weather, and history of warfare had created humans that other species found terrifying. The Lumari were the only ones who spoke for us, said Dr. Emma Reed, the lead scientist who studied alien biology. Her eyes were fixed on Trill's frozen image. Now they're calling for help. One council member leaned forward. If we respond, we break the quarantine. The Galactic Council could see this as an act of war. Morgan's face hardened. The Lumari are already at war, and they reached out to us because the Council won't help them fast enough. The vote was quick and unanimous. Within hours, sirens sounded in bases hidden across Earth and the Moon. Massive ships rose from beneath the oceans, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight for the first time. More vessels emerged from the dark side of the Moon, where they had been built in secret. The Earth Defense Fleet numbered over 200 ships, each constructed with technology reverse-engineered from diplomatic gifts and enhanced by human innovation. On the bridge of the flagship Retribution Morgan watched as his crew prepared for departure. Screens showed more ships joining formation around Earth. Engineers ran final checks on engines and weapons. Soldiers secured equipment and prepared for possible ground combat. All ships report ready, Admiral, said Lieutenant Ben Davis, the young tactical officer. Morgan nodded. Open fleet-wide communications. When the channel opened, he addressed all 200 ships at once. Men and women of Earth, today we break the chains placed upon us. For 30 years, the Galactic Council has feared what humanity might do if allowed among the stars. They called our home a death world because we evolved in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens. He paused, looking at the image of Earth on his screen. But the Council never understood what living on a death world truly means. It doesn't just make us stronger or more dangerous. It teaches us to fight harder for those who cannot fight for themselves. The Lumari stood up for humanity when the Council abandoned us. Today, we return that loyalty. Throughout the fleet, thousands of humans listened in silence. The Council abandoned the Lumari to their fate. They've always underestimated what death worlds create. The capacity for violence, yes, but also the fierce protection that comes from facing death together. Today, we show the galaxy both. The massive engines of the Earth fleet came to life, glowing blue against the blackness of space. Set course for the Lumari colony world. Maximum speed, Morgan ordered. The Earth fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving their quarantined solar system for the first time. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy was about to learn what Deathworlders could do when provoked. Behind them, Earth grew smaller, a blue marble in the darkness. But its most dangerous children were now among the stars, carrying with them both the strength and the determination that only a death world could instill. The hunt had begun. Krull Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the burning Lumari settlements below. The blue planet Nova Luma was almost theirs. The Lumari, with their thin bodies and peaceful ways, were no match for Krull soldiers. Status report, he demanded, his scaled skin reflecting the red glow of battle screens. Final resistance in the capital city, Commander, his lieutenant answered. The Council's peacekeeping force has not responded to their calls for help. Vex laughed, showing sharp teeth. The Council talks while worlds burn. By the time they decide to act, we will control this entire sector. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Red lights flashed as the ship's sensors detected something unexpected at the edge of the star system. Spatial distortions, Commander. Many ships entering the system. Vex frowned. Council peacekeepers. They can't have responded this quickly. No, sir. Unknown configuration. More ships than a standard Council response force. The Earth fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation. 200 warships, their hulls dark against the stars, weapons already charged. On the bridge of the Retribution Admiral Morgan studied the tactical display. The Krawl have begun bombing the planet, reported Lieutenant Davis. Ground forces are attacking the Lumeri capital. Morgan's face showed no emotion. Open communications. Let's introduce ourselves. When Vex's face appeared on screen, the Krawl commander's yellow eyes widened slightly at the sight of the unknown species. This is Admiral Jack Morgan of the Earth Defense Fleet, Morgan said calmly. You are attacking a world under our protection. Leave immediately or be destroyed. Vex recovered quickly from his surprise. Earth, the quarantined world. Your interference breaks council law, human. This is not your business. Morgan's expression remained cold. We received a direct request for help from Ambassador Trill. The Lumeri showed us kindness when the council abandoned us. We pay our debts. Vex ended the transmission with a growl. Destroy them, he ordered his fleet. They're just primitives who got lucky with stolen technology. The Krawl ships fired first, energy weapons flashing across space toward the human vessels. But instead of exploding, the Earth-ship shields absorbed the attack. Blue light rippled across their hulls as the shields held firm. They can't penetrate our defenses, Davis reported, unable to hide his smile. They didn't expect us to be prepared. Morgan nodded. Return fire. Target their main power systems. The Earth fleet's response was devastating. Morgan had studied the intelligence on Krawl ships from Trill's data package. The human weapons struck with deadly precision, hitting the weakest points in the Krawl vessels. 3 Krawl ships exploded immediately, bright flashes against the darkness. The rest scrambled to regroup, their formation breaking apart in confusion. They're running scared, Davis said. They'd never faced anyone who could fight back effectively. On his ship, Vex couldn't believe what he was seeing. The humans fought with a coordination and effectiveness the Krawl had never encountered. How is this possible? He shouted as another Krawl ship exploded. They're from a quarantined world. His tactical officer looked up with fear in his eyes. Sir, they're called Deathworlders for a reason. Morgan watched as the Krawl fleet tried to regroup. Deploy ground forces to protect the Lumeri civilians, he ordered. Lieutenant Rice, your team goes first. Throughout the Earth fleet, soldiers prepared for ground combat. They loaded into dropships, checking weapons and armor. The Krawl have never fought humans before, Morgan told his officers. Show them what Deathworlders can do. Dropships launched from the Earth vessels, streaking through Milvaluma's atmosphere toward the burning capital. Inside the lead ship, Lieutenant Maria Rice addressed her soldiers. The Lumeri can't survive what we can, she said firmly. Our job is to stand between them and extinction. Earth is watching. The galaxy is watching. Let's show them all why you don't mess with humans. The dropships descended through clouds of smoke toward the besieged city, where Krawl forces were about to learn the true meaning of the word Deathworlder. Lieutenant Maria Rice hit the ground running as her dropship landed in the burning Lumeri capital city. The air was cleaner than Earth's, and the gravity was lighter. For the human soldiers, it felt like wearing an invisible jetpack. Each step took them farther, each jump higher than on Earth. Move out. Secure the landing zone. Rice ordered her team. 50 heavily armed human marines spread out, weapons ready. The Krawl had never seen humans before. They had conquered many worlds with species that evolved in gentle environments. But humans were different. Stronger, faster, tougher. 2 Krawl soldiers appeared from behind a damaged building. They were tall, covered in scale-like armor, with weapons that glowed green. They fired at the humans, expecting easy kills like the Lumeri. Instead, the humans dodged with speed the Krawl couldn't match. Rice rolled to the side and fired 3 quick shots. The Krawl fell, their armor no match for weapons designed to pierce Earth's toughest metals. Command, this is Rice. We've made contact with enemy forces, she reported through her helmet comm. They're not prepared for our capabilities. Admiral Morgan's voice came through clearly. Good. Intelligence shows a research center nearby with Lumeri civilians trapped inside. Rescue them first. Rice signaled her team, and they moved through the city streets. What would have exhausted other species was just a light jog for humans. When they reached the research center, they found Krull soldiers trying to break through sealed doors. "Take them down, quickly and quietly," Rise ordered. The human soldiers struck with silent efficiency. In 30 seconds, all 10 Krull guards were down. Rise approached the sealed door and pressed the communication panel. "This is Lieutenant Maria Rise of the Earth Defense Fleet. We're here to help." After a moment, the door slid open. Inside stood 20 Lumari scientists and workers, their blue skin pale with fear. At the front was Dr. Lyran, his eyes wide as he looked at the humans. You're from Earth," he whispered in surprise. "The Council said your kind would never be allowed to leave your world." Ray smiled slightly behind her helmet visor. "Looks like the Council was wrong." She noticed a small Lumari child with an injured arm. Kneeling down, she pulled out a medical kit and began treating the wound. "Can you guide us to the main shelter?" she asked Dr. Lyran. "We're evacuating all civilians we can find." Lyran nodded, still staring at the humans with mixed fear and wonder. As they moved through the burning city, he explained why the Krull had attacked. "They want our research on quantum technology," he said. "We developed it for peaceful energy production, but they believe they can turn it into powerful weapons." Suddenly, Rise held up her hand, signaling everyone to stop. A Krull patrol was ahead, 12 soldiers blocking their path to the main shelter. "Stay back," she told the Lumari. "This will be over quickly." The Krull never had a chance. They were used to fighting species that evolved on gentle worlds like the Lumari. The humans moved with a speed and strength that shocked them. When a large Krull soldier knocked Rise to the ground, she didn't stay down. Despite a wound that would have killed a Lumari, she stood up, broke through the Krull's armor with her combat knife, and kept fighting. The surviving Krull fled, sending urgent messages to their commanders about the Deathworld demons. At the main shelter, hundreds of frightened Lumari watched as the human soldiers established a protective perimeter around them. Children stared in fascination at these strange creatures who seemed invincible compared to their own fragile bodies. Dr. Lyran stood beside Reyes as she coordinated with the fleet for evacuation shuttles. "The Council told us humans were dangerous," he said quietly. "They never mentioned you could also be kind." Reyes checked her weapon while scanning for threats. "We're both. That's what they never understood about us." More dropships descended from the sky, bringing additional human soldiers to secure the city. On the comms, reports came in of similar successes across the planet. The Krull were retreating, completely unprepared for the ferocity and effectiveness of human combat. "Lieutenant, incoming message from Admiral Morgan," her comm officer reported. "The space battle is won," Morgan's voice announced to all ground teams. "The Krull fleet is in full retreat. Well done, soldiers. You've just shown the galaxy what Earth can do." Rise looked up at the sky, where human ships now protected the blue world of Nova Luma. The Deathworlders had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from 100 different worlds sat in a massive circle, each speaking over the others. The emergency session had been called as soon as news spread about Earth's fleet-breaking quarantine. At the center of the hall, a holographic display showed human ships defending Nova Luma and pushing back the Krull forces. "The humans have violated the quarantine," shouted Counselor Drax of the Vorn Confederation, his red skin flushed darker with anger. "This proves they cannot be trusted." "The Krull violated our peace treaty first," countered Counselor Mela, one of the few who had supported better relations with Earth. Unlike most council members, she had actually visited Earth as part of a research team years ago, and our response force was days away while the Lumari were being slaughtered. The Grand Arbiter Xorin, the head of the council, raised his 4 arms for silence. His species was known for their calm wisdom, but even he looked troubled. "We face an unprecedented situation," Xorin said, his voice echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. Not only have the humans revealed a fleet we did not know existed, but they are successfully defeating the Crawl, something our own forces have struggled to do. The entire council turned to look at Admiral Tom Reed, humanity's unofficial observer. Reed wasn't actually a council member. Earth had no voting rights. He was officially just a cultural liaison, allowed to attend meetings but not speak unless asked directly. Admiral Reed, Soren said, perhaps you can explain how Earth built such an impressive fleet while under quarantine. Reed stood, his human form looking stronger and more solid than most of the aliens present. Many council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. While you debate, Reed said calmly, Earth is fighting your war. The distress call reached us because Ambassador Trill believed you would not respond in time. Was she wrong? No one answered. The silence in the chamber was heavy. The quarantine was meant to contain a species you feared, Reed continued. Instead, it gave us 30 years to prepare, unsupervised. Now the Crawl are attacking worlds under your protection, and humans are the only ones defending them. Perhaps it's time to reconsider who the real threat to peace is. The council erupted in angry shouts and arguments. Soren tried to restore order as new reports arrived. The Crawl were retreating from Nova Luma, but attacking other worlds. The human fleet had split into 3 battle groups, responding to multiple distress calls that the council had been slow to address. In a private room off the main chamber, several council leaders met in secret. The humans are handling the Crawl better than we expected, admitted one council member. Yes, and if we publicly condemn them for breaking quarantine while they're saving our worlds, we'll look foolish, said another. Soren joined them, his expression grave. Many of us feared what would happen if the Deathworlders joined galactic society. Now we're seeing what happens when they do so on their own terms. After hours of debate, Soren returned to the main chamber to announce the council's decision. We will temporarily suspend the quarantine restrictions, he said, choosing his words carefully, and request Earth's assistance with the Crawl situation. Reed nodded, hiding his satisfaction. I'll inform Admiral Morgan, but understand this isn't just about the Crawl anymore. Earth expects full recognition after this conflict ends. As Reed left to send his message, many council members watched with mixed feelings. They were relieved that someone was effectively fighting the Crawl, while also nervous about what it meant for the future. We classify them as Deathworlders because they're dangerous, whispered one council member to another. But perhaps we need dangerous allies when facing dangerous enemies. Across the galaxy, news spread quickly. The humans had broken free of their quarantine, and they were winning battles that others could not. Some worlds feared this development. Others secretly welcomed it. The age of the Deathworlders had begun. 2 weeks had passed since the first battle at Nova Luma. What started as a rescue mission had become a full war. The Crawl, facing unexpected resistance from humans, had pulled back to defensive positions around their core worlds. The Council's peacekeeping forces had finally joined the fight, but they found themselves following the more effective human fleet's lead. On the bridge of the Retribution Admiral Morgan studied a holographic map showing the current positions of all forces. The human fleet had won every battle so far, surprising even Morgan himself. Sir, we've finished questioning the captured Crawl officers, reported Dr. Emma Reed as she entered the bridge. I think you need to hear this. Morgan nodded, and they moved to a private meeting room. There, Dr. Reed displayed her findings on a large screen. The Crawl aren't expanding just for power or territory, she explained. They believe conquest is their only path to survival. Their homeworld is dying. The screen showed images of the Crawl home planet. Its star was unstable, with massive solar flares making the surface increasingly uninhabitable. Recent stellar activity is making their world too hot to live on, Reed continued. Instead of seeking help, their warrior culture turned to conquering other worlds. Morgan thought quietly for a moment. They're like us in some ways, he finally said, shaped by a harsh environment. But where we learn to adapt and work together, They only know how to take by force. After consulting with Earth and the newly cooperative council, Morgan made a decision that shocked many. Instead of pressing the advantage to destroy the weakened Krull fleet, he sent a direct message to the Krull High Command, an offer to talk. 3 days later, a human delegation met with the Krull leadership on a neutral station. The tension in the room was thick as Morgan faced Supreme Commander Gare, the leader of all Krull forces. Gare was bigger than other Krull, his scaled skin bearing many scars from past battles. He looked at Morgan with a mixture of hatred and reluctant respect. "You've proven your strength, human," Gare said, his voice deep and rough. "What terms do you offer for our surrender?" "Not surrender," Morgan replied calmly. "Survival. For everyone." The Krull leaders looked confused as Morgan activated a holographic display. It showed plans developed by Earth scientists working with Lumari researchers, a way to stabilize the Krull star using adaptations of the Lumari quantum technology. "Your people are facing extinction from your dying star," Morgan explained. "We can help you fix that problem. In exchange, you withdraw from all conquered territories and accept council oversight." Gare's yellow eyes narrowed. "Why would you help us? We would have shown no mercy to your kind." Morgan's answer was direct and simple. "Because that's the difference between being strong enough to destroy an enemy and being strong enough not to need to." The Krull leaders whispered among themselves, clearly struggling with this unexpected approach. "Our scientists have reviewed your proposal," Gare finally said. "It appears technically sound. But why should we trust you?" "You don't have to trust us," Morgan replied. "The Council will oversee everything. We just provide the technology and expertise." After hours of tense discussion, the Krull agreed to the terms, not because they had suddenly become peaceful, but because they recognized their situation. The war ended not with the destruction of the Krull, but with a cautious peace. As Morgan returned to his ship, Lieutenant Davis approached him. "Sir, with respect, why save them?" "After what they did to the Lumari and others." Morgan looked out at the stars. "Because humans have one advantage that comes from our Deathworld past, Lieutenant. We've learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to destroy your enemy, but to turn them into something other than an enemy." The Earth fleet prepared to help implement the Star Stabilization Project. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, one where humanity's strength wasn't just in their ability to fight, but in their capacity to find solutions where others saw only war. 6 months had passed since the war with the Krull ended. Today, the Galactic Council was meeting for a historic session. For the first time ever, a human delegate stood not as an observer, but as an official representative of Earth. Ambassador Olivia West took her place at the council table. She was tall and confident, her dark skin contrasting with her white diplomatic uniform. The chamber had been partly rebuilt to accommodate human needs: stronger chairs, different air mixture, slightly higher gravity in the human section. It was a small but important symbol of change. Grand Arbiter Xorin called the session to order. Representatives from over 100 worlds fell silent. "Today marks a new chapter in our shared history," Xorin announced. "Earth is officially recognized as a member world of the Galactic Council." Many delegates applauded. Some remained silent, still wary of the Deathworlders joining their peaceful community. But no one objected openly. The humans had proven themselves too valuable to exclude any longer. Ambassador West rose to speak. Her voice was calm but carried throughout the chamber. "The quarantine was based on fear," she said. "Fear of what might happen if a species from a Deathworld joined galactic society. That fear almost cost you everything when the Krull attacked." She gestured toward the Lumari delegation, now led by Dr. Luren, who had been promoted after his experiences on Nova Luma. "The universe is not always gentle," West continued. "Sometimes survival requires strength that can only be forged in harsh conditions." The Council voted to establish a new defensive alliance, with Earth playing a central role in training and coordination. Many species remained cautious around humans, but practical concerns outweighed their fears. On Nova Luma, A memorial ceremony was taking place. A statue of Ambassador Trill stood in the main plaza of the rebuilt capital city. Her final act of defiance, reaching out to Earth despite the Council's rules, had changed the course of galactic history. Human and Lumeri children placed flowers at the base of the statue. The two species looked very different. One evolved on a harsh world with high gravity, the other on a gentle world with minimal environmental challenges. Yet they stood together in friendship. Admiral Morgan watched the ceremony from a distance. He was approached by a council representative, a tall, slender alien with pale green skin. "Admiral," the representative said hesitantly, "the Galactic Survey has identified 3 other quarantine Deathworlds. The Council believes it might be wise if Earth made first contact with them, rather than following our previous protocols." Morgan raised an eyebrow. "Afraid they might have built fleets too." The representative gave a small smile, hopeful they might have developed the same balance of strength and compassion. Later that day, Morgan stood on the bridge of the Retribution looking at Earth on the main screen. After months in space, they were finally returning home. Messages from across the galaxy arrived constantly, some offering thanks, others seeking alliances, many simply curious about the Deathworlders who had defied expectations. In Earth's orbital shipyards, new vessels were under construction. Unlike before, they weren't being built in secret. They were acknowledged guardians of galactic peace. Their hulls bore a new symbol: Earth's globe surrounded by stars, with the Lumeri phrase for strength tempered by wisdom. Lieutenant Reyes joined Morgan on the bridge, her arm still healing from the wounds she received in the final battle. "What happens now, sir?" she asked. Morgan smiled. "Now we show the galaxy what humans can really do. We weren't just meant to fight wars, Lieutenant. We were meant to prevent them." As the Earth fleet made its final approach to their homeworld, news spread throughout the galaxy. The age of isolation was over. The Deathworlders had arrived on the galactic stage, bringing with them not just their strength, but their unique perspective. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes, the most dangerous worlds produce exactly the protectors you need when darkness comes. The end.